Hello, welcome to the community forum session at the Cybersecurity Days. My name is Zhicheng Lin. I'm a professor of computer science and engineering at the Ohio State University. I do research on computer security with a particular focus on software security, such as vulnerability discovery and software hardening. Today, I'm going to talk about a topic which you may have already thought about, namely why cybersecurity is hard. The reason of why I would like to give this talk is year 2021 is really a bad year for cybersecurity. So far, we have heard numerous cyber attacks, and this includes attacks against SolarWinds, Florida water plant, the Microsoft Exchange server, and the Colonial Pipeline. These cyber attacks have caused significant damages to our economy and the society. Then, I'm sure you must have started to wonder why there are so many cyber attacks. Or why can computers be attacked so easily? In order to answer this question, let me ask our slightly different question. Why can airplanes be attacked so easily? Since, like computers, airplane is also a human-made artifact. But I know this may trigger you to easily think about the 911 attack and also the airport security, such as passenger screening by the TSA, which may be more on the management side. So let me focus more on the technology side by changing this question to why can airplanes not be crashed so often? Well, we all know airplane is extremely complicated. To build an airplane, it requires tremendous amount of science and engineering knowledge, from such as math, physics, aerodynamics, control theory, autopilot, etc. But if you look at the number of the accidents in the past 15 years in airline industry, you will notice that the rate of crash is extremely low. It's almost like 1 among 1 million. So why we can achieve such a high reliability when building an airplane? Why we cannot build crash-resilient computers? Then let's look at the aircraft design. An airplane has many key components, such as the engines, the wings, the stabilizers, and so on. To make aircraft resilient to crash, it has included many of the best engineering principles and techniques, from fault avoidance by using such as formal methods to fault tolerance by using such as redundancy design, single version, multi-version, CRC, Hamming code, and multi-voting, etc. To get our sense on what is fault tolerance, let's look at one of the fault-tolerant techniques, CRC, to see how it works. CRC stands for cyclic redundancy check. You can think about it as a checksum of a message. Here is how it works. Assume Alice wants to send a message to Bob. During the transmission of the message, there could be cosmic ray, air molecules, etc., that can cause bit flips of the message. Therefore, when Bob received the message, it can be a completely different one because of the bit flips. To detect such a bit flip, CRC is introduced. Now, to transmit our message, Alice will first compute the CRC of the message and attach the CRC with the message and send it to Bob. Bob will also then verify whether the CRC is consistent with the message. If not, bit flips are detected. Then, is CRC secure against attacks? Well, The answer is no, since CRC is not designed for security, but rather for reliability. Because fundamentally, attackers can intercept the message, modify the message from M to M prime, and regenerate a new CRC for M prime. And then when Bob verifies, the CRC will still be consistent with the modified message M prime. Then how we solve this security problem? Well, the way to defeat attackers' modification is to use message authentication code, namely MAC, in which our cryptographic key is first shared between Alice and Bob. Then, when sending the message from Alice, it will use both the message and the cryptographic key together to generate our MAC. Therefore, attackers cannot modify the MAC because they do not have the key. But Bob can still verify the message because he has the key. So now you can see clearly the essence of reliability is to deal with the errors from the natural environment, such as radiations, whereas the essence of cybersecurity is to deal with the intelligent adversary. So cybersecurity is an inherently adversarial discipline. There are always two parties, offenders and defenders. And they always play the games by trying to exploit the assumptions and weaknesses of the other in order to win the game. Unfortunately, the game is completely unfair because it is completely asymmetric. As defenders, they must defend against every vulnerability, both known and unknown, through every vector, and must do so perfectly. But offenders need only one tiny mistake from the defenders in order to win the game. Defenders' strategies chiefly include making it expensive for offenders to attack, for example, by adding more layers of defenses. And whereas offenders' strategies are keeping searching for just one vulnerability. There are also dilemmas in defenders. You cannot defend against the attacks which you don't know exist. For instance, to fight for COVID-19, we need to first develop the corresponding vaccine based on the symptoms from the infected patients. Then, when viruses comes again, our immune system can stop its intrusions. If there are other new viruses, such as the Delta variant, we have to repeat this process again. In cybersecurity, it works the same. And you cannot defeat the attacks you don't know exist. I have introduced how offenders and defenders play the game. Let's zoom in to say, who are the offenders? What are their motivations? And how powerful are they? There could be various offenders. This includes scripted kiddies, hacktivists, insiders, cybercriminals, and even state-sponsored attackers who have unlimited resources. They are motivated for various reasons, such as financial gain, intellectual property, business competition, cyber warfare, politic or social gain, etc. They are extremely powerful, and they can use all the tools available today, such as cryptography, AI, automation, and even quantum computers when they come out. I want to particularly emphasize that the offenders are both humans and machines. We know exactly their strength, such as humans are really good at intuition, abstraction, and creativity, and machines are good at brute force, precision, and they can be scaled massively. And the machine never feels tired. They can easily perform sophisticated tasks, and they can be easily replicated, and they have our forever memory. So it is really hard to defeat such types of offenders. In order to win the game, defenders have to learn a lot of knowledge. This includes from fundamental theory, such as game theory, access control, and assurance, to computer systems knowledge, such as operating system security, software security, network security, physical layer security, to various application domains, such as mobile, cloud, edge, IoT, to various techniques, such as vulnerability analysis, fuzz reverse engineering, and data analytics, to even human factors, such as social engineering and risk management. So it is really complicated. Why does cybersecurity become harder and harder? Why year 2021 is such a bad year for cybersecurity? Well, this lies in the dilemma between isolation and convenience. Let's look at the history of cyber evolution to understand this dilemma. In the early days, computers were mostly built for single users or collected with trusted users. However, when internet was born, computers started to be collected with the untrusted ones in the internet. Then later, when moving to the mobile era, more and more devices, such as even your phones and tablets, are collected. Today, we are in the era of IoT, where many computing devices, including even our cars, are connected to the internet. You can also see that our trust paradigm has evolved from earlier trusting everything to trust nothing, which leads to the zero trust, an extremely popular concept in the security industry today. In the zero trust architecture, devices today should not be trusted by default, even if they are connected to our managed corporate network, such as the corporate NAN, and even if they were previously verified. Let's also look at why we have to do this. One dimension to look at is the attack surface. This is how it looks like today. You can see many of your home devices, such as your cameras, your locks, your TVs, are connected to the internet. Critical infrastructures, such as power plants, smart grids, hospitals, are connected to the internet as well. Certainly, given such a large attack surface, it will be easier for attackers to find one single vulnerability and attack these systems. That is why it is not a surprise for a water plant to be attacked this year. You can imagine many other cyber attacks will happen. What have defenders been working on over the years? Are we getting better at defending against cyber attacks? In the rest of my talk, I would like to briefly talk about the following 4 directions: inventing isolation primitives, developing memory-safe programming languages, formal verification, and lastly, using AI for cybersecurity. The first one, isolation. I have talked about the dilemma between isolation and convenience. Because more devices are connected to the internet for our conveniences, it has huge security problems. But in order to achieve security, we have to use isolation. Professor Gene Spath once said, quote, "The only system which is truly secure is one which is switched off and unplugged, locked in a titanium-lined safe, buried in a concrete bunker and is surrounded by nerve gas and very highly paid armed guards. But we also know such truly secure computers are useless. Therefore, over the years, security community has developed numerous isolation primitives to achieve the balance between convenience and security. This includes from virtual memory to run protection to virtualization to HTTPS, which is a cryptography-based isolation, ARM Trust Zone, Intel VT, AMD Way, to recently hardware-based sandboxes such as Intel SGX, AMD SEV, to even Intel TME and MK TME, which are not market available at this moment. So here is how it looks like in today's computer. It has many software and hardware built-in isolations, from physical layer to virtual machine monitor layer by using such as MPX, Intel VT, or AMD SEV, to OS layer such as the ring architecture and virtual memory, to application layer such as Intel SGX and encryptions. Meanwhile, when computers communicate with each other, they will use encrypted channels, which is a very strong isolation primitive. The second direction I want to talk about is to develop memory-safe programming languages. We know today many of our system software are developed by memory-unsafe languages such as C and C++. Unfortunately, programmers, when using such languages, can easily introduce buffer overflow vulnerabilities, which allow attackers to control critical data structures, such as the return addresses in the stack, which can further lead to attacks such as control flow hijacking. In fact, there is a heated arm race between buffer flow attacks and defenses. Let me dive into deeper of this arm race to see clearly how offenders and defenders play the security game. The first few buffer flow attacks use code injection, in which attackers directly overflow the buffer in stack with injected shellcode and execute them in the stack. To defeat code injection attacks, defenders then proposed canary and data execution prevention, namely DEP. Attackers then proposed return into libc attack, in which attackers use code reuse by reusing the address in the standard library to create the shellcode, instead of directly inject them. In response to this attack, defenders then proposed address space layout randomization, namely AIRS-LR. Later, in 2005, there was another code reuse attack called borrowed code chunk attack. And in the same year, there is a new defense called control flow integrity, or CFI, to defeat attacks that violate the intended program control flow. Then in 2007, the very famous ROP attack was proposed, followed by QROP in 2011. Then there was the defense in 2012 to randomize the addresses of both standard libraries and main executables. In 2013, there was the GTROP and also bin CFI defense. In 2014, there was the BROP and forward edge CFI. In 2015, there was the Microsoft Control Flow Guard from Visual Studio. In 2016, there was data-oriented programming, as well as runtime AIRS-LR. In 2017, there was the address oblivious code reuse and the defense of Intel CET and ARM pointer authentication code. Most recently, there were other new attacks and defenses as well. I have to emphasize that this is by no means our complete list. There are many other attacks and defenses not listed here. But the key point I want to show you here is that this arms race started from early code injection attacks from attackers with ASLR and DEP from defenders, and then code reuse attacks such as ROB and GitROB to control for integrity defense, which have been implemented in modern hardware such as the pointer authentication code. However, we cannot have this arms race forever. We need memory-safe programming languages. Then let's look at the history of the programming language development. Over the past 70 years, numerous programming languages have been developed. And this includes early days, the assembly language, to C in 70s, to Java, PHP, and JavaScript in 90s, to Go in 2009, Rust in 2010, Swift in 2014, etc. Among them, I want to particularly highlight Rust, which is memory safe by design, and meanwhile performant. Today, the good news is that Rust has become the most loved programming language, according to our recent survey from programmers. And many tech companies, such as Microsoft and Facebook, have started to use Rust in their production. The third direction I want to talk about is the formal verification. We know formal methods have been used during the aircraft design, which is one of the reasons why airplanes are more resilient to crashes. In the past few years, we have witnessed a number of news headlines, such as hacking-proof drones, formal verification in automotive software design, and recently formally verified software in real world. These are all good signs. However, we also have to be aware that the difficulty of proving software is secure is way more challenging than finding a vulnerability in the software. While I do not work on formal verification at this moment, I do have seen some advancements in the systems community, which is started from 2009, where a microkernel with less than 10,000 lines of code was formally verified. Then in 2012, an execute verify architecture was proposed to handle the replication for multi-core servers. In 2013, it was the verification of computations with states. 2014, end-to-end security via automated full system verification. 2016, verification of file systems. Suddenly, in 2017, 3 papers on verification. They focused on either file systems or operating system kernels or enclave software. 2014, 4 papers on verification. They focus on either information flow control to concurrent software or confidentiality of file systems or concurrent services. 2019, 4 papers. 2020, 5 papers. So clearly, we see the trend, and we can anticipate more formal verifications will be applied in real-world computer systems design and implementations. The last direction I would like to talk about is using AI for cybersecurity. Remember, I have talked about machine is really good at brute force, precision, and scalability, and they never feel tired. So we can absolutely use machines, particularly the AI, to automate many of our sophisticated tasks, such as cyber data analytics, improve the precision of attack detection, predict the risks, and respond to attacks instantly. Recently, Ohio State was awarded the $20 million AI Edge Institute from the National Science Foundation. I'm very fortunate to be one of the faculty members in this institute. The mission of this institute is to design the next generation edge network, such as 6G and beyond, that are highly efficient, reliable, and robust. Clearly, security and privacy are crucial in the edge network, and we will investigate how AI can help secure the edge network, and meanwhile, how to secure the AI itself and protect the user's privacy. I'm quite excited about having the opportunities to work on these topics. Let me conclude my talk by briefly talking about the non-technical aspect in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is complicated. It requires not only the technology development, but also the laws to deter their attackers and hold them accountable if they commit any cyber attacks. We can see there are already a number of cybersecurity laws and regulations from earlier CFAA to recently GDPR and CCPA. These laws can certainly make attackers think twice before launching any attacks, and meanwhile, make the tech companies invest more in cybersecurity. Otherwise, they will face huge financial punishment, for example, by paying the fine with up to billions of dollars for cyber attacks such as data breaches. However, we have to be aware that there are many other challenges, such as attribution, which aim to locate their attackers. But for the internet, it is so easy for attackers to hide themselves. And also the jurisdiction challenge, where we need the international laws and orders and the enforcement of these laws across the globe. Now I have reached the end of my presentation. Hopefully, I have convinced you why cybersecurity is hard. If you have any questions and comments, please feel free to contact me at this email address. Thank you for watching.